Chazakim biyachad. We are stronger together. My name is Chaim Steinmetz, and I am the rabbi of this synagogue, congregation Kehilath Jeshurun. We are hosting this evening's Tekes Maavar, a ceremony that bridges the end of Yom Hazikaron, Israel's Memorial Day, and Yom HaAtzmaut, Israel's Independence Day. We are here this evening to stand with Israel. We are here to stand together with each other. This event was organized and sponsored by different organizations and different congregations who have different points of view. But we do share a love for one another. Jews have always seen themselves as a family writ large, a never-ending group of relatives. And while we may not like every single one of our relatives, we certainly love them. And that is why all of us, no matter what our differences are here tonight. I'd like to take a moment to recognize all of the partners in organizing and sponsoring this Tekes Maavar, which is now in its 5th year. Central Synagogue, Park Avenue Synagogue, Temple Emmanuel, IAC, the Israel American Council, the 92nd Street Y, Zamir Chorale Foundation, and JBS, the Jewish Broadcasting Service, which is broadcasting this live tonight. Welcome to all of these organizations, and welcome to all of you who are in attendance here and all of you that are watching around the country. I'm so happy to have all of you, my extended family, with us tonight, and I hope you feel at home. This year, the message of Chazakim biyachad, we are stronger together, and not so young, a moment's notice. If we didn't have everyone else in Israel from the north and south, from around, help through advocacy, philanthropy, and volunteering. Imagine if the students on campus didn't have the rest of us to stand up with them, for them. Imagine if we weren't there for each other. Imagine. But we were and are and will be there for each other. We are family. We are so much stronger because we are together. And we need to be. 220 days ago, Hamas unleashed a horrific and depraved attack on Israel. Since then, 1,600 Israelis have lost their lives. The victims were predominantly young, children, partygoers, young families, and soldiers. The Jewish world has been heartbroken for the last 7 months. And we are even more heartbroken today on Yom HaZikaron, Israel's Memorial Day, a day devoted to their memory. But we must remember them today and always, because that is what families do. Families come together. Families celebrate together, as we will in a short while with Yom HaAtzmaut. And families grieve together, as we do right now with Yom HaZikaron. I once took a group to Israel during this time of the year. On Yom HaZikaron, the guide sent a replacement, and he didn't come with us the entire day. I asked him the next morning, why didn't he come? And he explained to me that he had been a commander in an elite military unit. Over the years, several of his soldiers had fallen in battle. And each year on Yom HaZikaron, he would visit the families of the soldiers who were under his command, who had fallen in battle. He would make a point to visit even years later to let them know that he remembered their children and that he was always going to stand with them. And that is our task right now on this particularly difficult Yom Hazikaron. We turn to the bereaved in Israel, those who lost their cherished children, husbands, wives, fathers, mothers, brothers, and sisters, and we are going to let them know that we stand with them. We stand with them because that's what families do. Yehi Zichram Baruch. I now am going to call upon the Upper East Side Shlicha, Michal Abramov, to light the memorial candle.
Idan Amedi is an Israeli singer, songwriter, and actor who rose to fame on a reality show named Kochav Nolad in 2010. Idan joined the cast of the TV action series Fauda, where he plays the character Sagitsul. He was called up as an IDF reservist after the October 7th attack and was seriously injured in January 2024 while demolishing Hamas tunnels in Gaza. Thankfully, thank God, he survived and is expected to make a full recovery. I'd like to share with you this evening one of his very powerful songs named Ke'ev Shel Lochamim, Pain of Warriors. ערב ראשון שלבד יושב וכותב לך מכתב על כל הדברים שהיו, כל מה שקרה בדיוק, אותיות מופיעות על הקיר, אני הפחד נעים להכיר, הדמויות אוהבות לשחק, זזות כאן בבית הריק, ואת לא יודעת כמה ממך ניסיתי להסתיר את כל הסיוטים בלילה צרחות ודם על המדים. את לא מבינה כבר למה מיני מזמן כבר לא אני. תמונות רצות מאותו לילה, דמעות כאב שלא חמים. זה ערב ראשון שאת שם, שוכב וחושב, לא נרדם. השקט לאט מתנגן, מקדיש לך עכשיו שיר בלי שם, שיר בלי שם. ואת לא יודעת כמה ממך ניסיתי להסתיר את כל הסיוטים בלילה, צרחות ודם על המדים. את לא מבינה כבר למה אני מזמן כבר לא אני. תמונות רצות מאותו לילה, דמעות כאב שלא חמים. זה ערב ראשון שלבד יושב וכותב לך מכתב. Shai Bernstein, son of David and Ricky Bernstein, many of you may know them, was born here at Lenox Hill Hospital. His bris, as he told me, was the first bris at what was then the new upper school on 78th Street in 1983. He grew up in Jerusalem and served as a captain in the elite unit of Sayeret Givati. He and his family currently live in Riverdale for the past 2 years for his wife's fellowship. On the morning of October 7th, Shai heard the news in Shul and immediately ran home to turn on his phone to see what's going on. And right away, he booked the first flight, one of the first flights that were going back to Israel via London, and joined his unit on October 8th. Shai is with us this evening to share his story.
Bet Hanun, just north of Gaza City. November 10th, 6 months ago. It was humid and sticky. My chest and back were itching like 700 mosquito bites, a testament to the ceramic vest that hadn't been taken off for the past 11 days. I had just changed my socks for the first time that week. Our shoes need to be on our feet at all times. You never know when the next RPG may hit. The explosion was very loud. After that, only the sound of silence. A few seconds later, our military radio went haywire, with soldiers shouting, reporting what they saw. and asking for help with the evacuation. We were too far away from them. Moshe Leiter, Zichrono Livracha, my friend who studied with me in the yeshiva in Eli, was killed that night. His team had uncovered a tunnel under a mosque, a tunnel that was heavily booby-trapped with explosives. 4 soldiers were killed in that incident. Moshe, Yossi Hershkowitz, Matan Meir, and Sergei Shmerkin, Zichronam Livracha. Elisha Meidan, Rav Meidan from Yeshivat Har Tzion's son, lost both his legs in the same incident. Moshe was married to Tzipi and has 6 children, the youngest one only a year old. He was finishing medical school after 15 years of army service in the elite Shaldag unit. He was such a brave, talented, and admired commander. His willpower was fierce and moved mountains. He had an innate ability to bring people together. Even though he was killed just before he turned 40, Moshe achieved more than many do in a lifetime. I saw a recording of his funeral. Since I was in Gaza, I missed both his funeral and the Shiva. Moshe's wife, Tzipi, said to her children, "From now on, my loved ones, your father is like all the important things in life, like love, like light, like emunah, faith, and like happiness. All these are hidden. We can't see them, but they will forever be in our hearts." Back to the beginning, on October 7th. After I left for the airport, my kids, ages 9, 7, and 5, asked my wife, Nama, "Why does Abba have to go?" She answered so eloquently, "When Israel needs us, we come." My unit was tasked with securing the parameters of the Nova Festival, helping Zaka with the bodies, and searching for more terrorists in that area. Words can't describe the aftermath of this attack. At times it felt a bit like a movie set. We just couldn't believe it was real. Once we entered Gaza, our team, it's called Chapak Samgad, which means the Deputy Battalion Commander Squad, included 6 reservists. Our team discovered a Hamas stronghold based in an UNRWA school. In that complicated mission, my team of 6 was hit by an RPG. 3 of the 6 of us, Chemo, Damari, and Lieberman, were wounded. Later on, we discovered a shaft of a Hamas tunnel based out of a hospital. Our unit exposed 14 tunnels, collected essential intel that, to quote Herzia Levi, the chief of staff of the IDF, played into strategic decisions for the next units that entered Gaza and saved many lives. This was our small part in a very complex operation. I never thought one can be in 2 places at the same time. Over the past 7 months, I've been going back and forth, physically and mentally, from America to Israel, and from Gaza to New York City, a parallel universe. One moment I'm on the phone with my friend who can't sleep because of the pain. He's lying alone in his hospital bed because he can't sit or walk. 2 months later, I find myself on a call with a client discussing how we can improve the user experience and increase sales by 6%. A parallel universe. But this is our lived experience as Jews. The friends we recently lost, the hostages, and the wounded are not a result of October 7th alone. They are part of a larger story, the history of a rich Jewish heritage that has suffered countless pogroms and persecution. Bechol dor vador omdim alenu lechalotenu. It's tragic, yes. But while we try to forget it and want to believe it's not true anymore, we keep being reminded by our enemies of who we are and what we represent. And they hate us for it. We feel this not only in Israel, but across the world, and even here in Manhattan. During my flight back to Israel on October 8th, a British flight attendant asked me, "What brings you to Israel, specifically in this difficult time?" When I shared that I was going to join my unit and defend my country, he couldn't believe it. He said, "I would be running away from the war, and you're running towards it. Aren't you afraid?" he asked. Of course I am. But it's not about me or my family. It's about something bigger than us. The timeless Jewish chain of Netzach Israel. We don't want to go to war, but we will not hesitate to defend ourselves and protect Jews around the world as we fight for our right to exist in the second war of independence. Perspective is so important. This past Friday night, we had the honor of hosting Sonia Kam, a 94-year-old Holocaust survivor, in our home. Sonia's energy and life force is inspiring. During these days of remembrance, Yom HaShoah and Yom Hazikaron, I often think of a short poem written by Tzur Ehrlich, an Israeli journalist. It's very short. I'll read it in Hebrew first and then in English. בהפרש של שבוע, שני ימי זיכרון, סמוכים כל שנה, לטובת החישוב הכללי, כמה עולה לנו אי מדינה, וכמה עולה לנו בלי. In the span of a week, 2 days of memory help us count the cost with the state of Israel and the cost without. While we're fortunate to be able to defend ourselves and have the state of Israel, it comes with a heavy price. To all those who have fallen and whom we cherish forever in our hearts, to their loved ones whom they left behind, to the physically and mentally wounded who sacrificed parts of their body and their souls, and to their families who are part of their daily battle of recovery. We are forever in your debt. And to quote Natan Alterman, you all are the silver platter upon which the state of Israel was given to us. עם הנצח לא מפחד מדרך ארוכה. The eternal nation isn't afraid of a long and winding road. It's not going to be easy, but we shall prevail. we should be clapping for all the soldiers and the families. And on that note, yes. And on that note, it's my honor to call my wife, Naama, who many times I think Naama and the rest of the spouses of people who have been called up don't really receive the right recognition. We couldn't do anything without them. So, Naama.
May he who blessed our ancestors, Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, Sarah, Rivka, Rachel, and Leah, bless the members of Israel's defense forces and its security service who stand guard over our land and the cities of our God, from the Lebanese border to the Egyptian desert, from the Mediterranean Sea to the approach of the Arava, and wherever else they are on land, in air, and at sea. May the Lord make the enemies who rise against us be struck down before them. May the Holy One, blessed be he, protect and deliver them from all trouble and distress, affliction and illness, and send blessing and success to all the work of their hands. May he subdue our enemies under them and crown them with deliverance and victory. And may there be fulfilled in them the verse, "It is the Lord your God who goes with you to fight for you against your enemies to deliver you." And let us say, Amen.
I'd like to ask you to all please rise as we sing together the Tefillah Lishlom Chayalei Medinat Israel.
אברהם, יצחק ויעקב, הוא יברך את חיילי צבא הגנה לישראל, הוא יברך את חיילי צבא הגנה לישראל, הוא יברך את חיילי צבא הגנה לישראל, העומדים על משמר וערי אלוהינו מגבול הלבנון ועד מדבר מצרים ומן הים הגדול עד לבוא הערבה ביבשה באוויר ובים הוא יברך את חיילי צבא הגנה לישראל, הוא יברך את חיילי צבא הגנה לישראל, הוא יברך את חיילי צבא הגנה לישראל, ייתן אדוני את אויבינו הקמים עלינו ניגפים לפניהם. הקדוש ברוך הוא ישמור ויציל את חיילינו מכל צרה וצוקה, מכל נגע ומחלה, וישלח ברכה והצלחה בכל מעשה ידיהם, ידבר שונאינו תחתיהם, ויקוים בהם הכתוב, כי אדוני אלוהיכם ההולך עמכם להילחם לכם עם אויביכם, להושיע אתכם ונאמר אמן. Please remain standing.
El male rachamim shochein במרומים, המצא מנוחה נכונה תחת כנפי השכינה, במעלות קדושים וטהורים, כזוהר הרקיע, מזהירים לנשמות אחינו ואחיותינו לוחמי המחתרות וכל כוחות הביטחון וההצלה ולוחמי צבא ההגנה לישראל ונפגעי הטרור ולכל אלה שנספו ונרצחו בכל מיתות משונות ב7 באוקטובר בידי ארגון המרצחים החמאס יימח שמם, ולכל אלה שמסרו נפשם על קדושת השם. שכולנו מתפללים לעילוי נשמותיהם. לכן בעל הרחמים יסתירם בסתר כנפיו לעולמים ויצרו ויצרור ביצרור החיים את נשמותיהם בגן עדן תהא מנוחתם אדוני הוא נחלתם וינוחו ושלום על משכבם ונאמר אמן. You may be seated.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for inviting me here today. My name is Moshe. I was born and raised in Sderot in Israel. Spent most of my life in Otef Aza, the northwestern part of the Negev, and was lucky to have two wonderful parents and two amazing sisters. On October 7, I found myself here in New York, to where I moved in September. But my entire immediate family was attacked on that day, in Sderot, in Or HaNer, and in Nachal Oz. The most severe case happened there, in Nachal Oz, where my sister Lishai and my brother-in-law Omri Miran built their home, established a family with two young daughters, Roni and Alma. Roni will mark her third birthday in July. Alma just marked her first birthday in April. On October 7, Hamas terrorists in their hundreds invaded the kibbutz. At one point, they reached my sister's home. They used a teenage boy from the kibbutz, Tomer Arava Eliaz, may he rest in peace. He begged them to open the door, and Lishai and Omri opened it immediately to save his life. But with him came as well Hamas terrorists who barged into their home, ransacked it, and abused them for the next few hours, holding them at gunpoint. Tomer was murdered later that day alongside his mother and his mother's partner. Lishai and Omri, in the meantime, were taken to another home in the kibbutz, the Dan family's home, whose eldest daughter, Maayan, was murdered in front of her parents and younger siblings. She was 18 years old. For a few more hours, they were held captive there as well, all live streamed on the Facebook account of Gali Dan, the mother of the Dan family. At around 1:30 p.m. that day, the terrorists decided to take captive Omri alongside 3 others from that house. They handcuffed them and started taking them to Gaza. My sister Lishai told Omri she loves him, that she'll take care of the girls and ask him not to be a hero because she wants him to return to her and to their daughters. That was the last time she saw Marie until 2 weeks ago. Hamas terrorists published a psychological warfare video showing Omri after almost 7 months of captivity. The Omri we saw in that video was not the Omri of October 6th. The spark in his eyes is no longer there. The smile is gone. He looks unwell, but he's alive. And while it was difficult for us as a family, all together in Israel, just ahead of the second Passover Holy Seder, to see him there, it gave us hope that we can still bring him home, alive, alongside many other hostages who are still held captive by Hamas and their accomplices. Omri just marked his 47th birthday in April. He's the most kind person I've met, a loving husband, devoted father to his 2 daughters, and wonderful brother to his siblings, and a son to his father, Danny. A shiatotherapist in training, his mental resiliency most likely allows him to remain strong in captivity. As a gardener in the kibbutz, the serene serene connected to nature allows him most likely to dream of the return to the fields of Kibbutz Nachalos, the fields that are still waiting for the many other displaced people to return there. A love of nature, of mankind, a man of the book, supporter of Maccabi Tel Aviv in sports, to which he was so connected. We're waiting for Omri to return. We're waiting for all the hostages to return. And so we keep on speaking to congregations like yours. No matter your conviction of how this needs to be solved, I urge you to do something that you believe will help the cause of the hostages. Whether it is to write to the White House, whether it is to write to the office of the Israeli Prime Minister, whether it is supporting financially the hostages' families, or going on the ground in Israel to be there with them physically. Many of them bereaved families, many of them displaced families. We believe that the sanctity of life is above all other principles in our religion, in the ethos of our country. And we will keep pushing those who can decide the fate of the hostages, whether in Israel, whether here in the US, and in every capital in the world, to bring home our family members so that we can reunite with them and rebuild the beautiful region that I grew up in, that I served in for 6 years, that we as a family are so much connected, and we as families of hostages want to see bloom again, not in a few months, but tomorrow. Please help us to bring home all the hostages so that we will mark our next holiday, not by simply marking it, but by celebrating it with our family members. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is David Ingber, and I am the founder of Romamu, the rabbi at the 92nd Street Y as the director of the Bronfman Center and Jewish Life. And tonight, as we gather here to commemorate Yom Hazikaron and also celebrate Yom Ha'atzmaut, we hold in our hearts the powerful message that Moshe, you just gave us, the enduring spirit of resilience of those families and of Am Yisrael, of our people, and their ability to also, the courage to be independent. Those things define our people. We are the people of hope, of tikva, and we are the people of persistence and perseverance, the people of V'af al pi sheyitma'amea im kol zeh. Even though it takes a long time and there's a winding road, we are Am HaNitzachon, we are the eternal people. And even if we had to wait, we did, until we arrived. But this year's arrival is tempered. Our joy is not what it usually is. The somber reality that our brothers and sisters remain in captivity is a shadow and a cloud that hangs over all of us here tonight. On the Chagim, on the Yamim Noraim, on the high holidays, in our tefillot, in our liturgy, our prayers say that you, God, we describe you as a zocher kol hanishkachot, one who remembers all of those who are forgotten. And so as we honor those we have lost and we rejoice in the freedom of our state, we also remember those who have been forgotten by the world, those whom the world has left behind, whom the world has callously and unforgivably abandoned, but whom we will never forget. Tonight we are the Zochrei HaNishkachot, the ones who remember the forgotten ones. Tonight and every day, we call for the immediate and safe return of all of our hostages held by Hamas. Their plight is not forgotten, and our hopes and prayers are with them and their families for a reunion, as you said, Moshe, for a holiday together in peace and in security. Moshe, would you please join me in saying the prayer for the Chatufim, for the hostages? מי שברך אבותינו אברהם, יצחק ויעקב, ואימותינו שרה, רבקה, רחל ולאה, יוסף, משה ואהרון, דוד ושלמה, הוא יברך וישמור וינצור את נדרי צבא ההגנה לישראל ושבוייו, ואת כל אחינו הנתונים בצרה ובשביה, בעבור שכל הקהל הקדוש הזה מתפלל בעבורם. הקדוש ברוך הוא ימלא רחמים עליהם, יוציאם מחושך וצל מוות, ומסורתיהם ינתק, ומצוקותיהם יושיעם, וישיבם מהרה לחיק משפחותיהם. יודו לאדוני חסדו ונפלאותיו לבני אדם, וקוים בהם מקרא שכתוב, ופדויי אדוני ישובון, ובאו ציון ברינה.
שמחת עולם על ראשם, ששון ושמחה
ישיגו, ונעשו ירגון והנחה, ונאמר אמן.
We've heard so eloquently about Vehi Shamda Lavotenu before. It's a historical fact. We knew it intellectually. Some of us of an older generation knew it emotionally. Now we all know it emotionally. But if that part of the statement is true, that in every generation, Ba'im lechalotenu, to destroy us, the other half of the sentence must also be true. V'hakadosh Baruch Hu matzilenu miyadam, and I add, V'hakadosh Baruch Hu v'tzva hagana liYisrael yatzilenu.
Rabbi Steinmetz, Cantor Burson, we thank you for your leadership, for bringing us all together on this deeply important evening. In all my years as a rabbi, no one has ever shared with me that they have gotten over the loss of a loved one. At best, the ritualized phases of mourning help us put one foot in front of the other to remember those who have died, even as we look forward to the future with hope. From Aninut, the period between death and burial, where words themselves fail, Shiva, the 7 days of mourning following burial, Shloshim, for 30 days, mourners return to work, their basic routine, but avoid non-essential socializing, and of course the year of Avelut, a somber period in which we continue to say Kaddish for parents, often culminating with the unveiling of a memorial headstone. From shock, anger, to grief, and eventually acceptance and return to life, as it was not as before, but to a changed life, absent that loved one. The rites and rituals of Jewish mourning give us the tools to journey through loss. The rituals do not take a person's pain away. People just move through the stages, figuring out how to put one foot in front of the other. We remember, and yet we step forward. The ache remains, yet we nevertheless plan for the future. Since the horrific attacks of October 7th, time and again I've returned to the ritualized stages of Jewish mourning in search of a scaffolding to make sense of loss. The analogy is far from perfect. Unlike the passing of a beloved relative, the present grief of the Jewish people isn't situated on any one day. Hostilities continue, which means daily sacrifices of civilians and soldiers, hostages whose condition remains unknown. The sorrows of the present are still actively unfolding, the traumas not yet fully known, the cascade of October 7th rippling through Israel and the Jewish world. This is a mourning process whose scope extends beyond any conventional rituals of Jewish mourning. And yet, in the tradition, we find wisdom as how to respond to the hour, and specifically in this present moment, as we transition from Yom Hazikaron to Yom Ha'atzmaut. Aware of the sacrifices, alert to the ongoing trauma and threats, we dare not lose sight of that which we are defending. Lihiotam chofshi be'artzenu, to be a free people in our land. If, as the adage goes, as per the loss, so too the love, it is now to that which we love, Medinat Israel, to which we pivot. To be the subject of our own sentence and not the object of someone else's. The dream realized of Jewish sovereignty, the best response to our historic vulnerability. The project of building a state, a Jewish state, and a liberal democracy impelled by Jewish history, shaped by Jewish values, and in the words of its declaration, as envisaged by the prophets of Israel, ensuring complete equality of social and political rights to all its citizens. We mourn and we affirm. We grieve and we recommit. We shed tears of sorrow and we make space to sing songs of joy. You know, the final act of a Jewish ritual, a wedding, ritualizes a passage from Psalms. If I forget thee, O Jerusalem, im eshkachech Yerushalayim, the shattering glass beneath the feet of the bride and groom. At the many weddings at which I have officiated since October 7th, I found my thoughts lingering on this well-known ritual, always powerful, even more so now. The shards beneath the wedding canopy representing the shattered state of the Jewish people, and yet like that wedding couple taking their steps into the future by way of shards, so too must we, holding the pain even as we dream of a brighter future, ready to begin and begin again, to remember the hurt and yet to put one foot in front of the other. It's not everything, but it's a place to start. And God knows we are all in need of a place to start. Wholeness and brokenness every step of the way on our journey, please God, to the promised land. I invite you to please rise. We usher in the children. We usher in Yom HaAtzmaut by way of their smiles, their flags, and the sound of the shofar.
My name is Mo Glasman. I'm the cantor at Congregation Emmanuel of the city of New York, just down the street. My parents were refuseniks for 14 years from the former Soviet Union. My father fought in the Yom Kippur War. I was raised in an Orthodox shul in Halifax. I knew then that the state of Israel was always at the very core of my existence. And often people ask me, well, why did you decide to become a cantor? And I have several answers. None more important than what I would share tonight, which is being with you is the reason I became a cantor. Hearing your voices, singing with you, celebrating Israel is a gift. We sing the prayer for the state of Israel in 1948, a remarkable chance to create new liturgy with hope and promise. Avinu Shebashamayim, we sing to our God on high. We sing together. Avinu, Avinu, Shebashamayim, Tzu Yisrael v'go'alo. Avinu, Avinu, Shebashamayim, Tzu Yisrael v'go'alo. Barech, Barech, Medinat Yisrael, Reishit tzmichat gulatenu, Hagen aleha bevrat chasdecha, Uthros aleha sukat shelomecha. Avinu, Avinu, Shebashamayim, Tzu Yisrael v'go'alo, v'go'alo. Avinu, Avinu, Shebashamayim, Tzu Yisrael v'go'alo. Ushla Orecha v'amitecha l'rasheha zareha v'yotzeha v'yotzeha v'taknei v'atzah Tova milvanecha v'takne b'atzah tova milvanecha. Avinu, Avinu, Shebashamayim, Tzu Yisrael v'go'alo. Avinu, Avinu, Shebashamayim, Tzu Yisrael v'go'alo. Tzu Yisrael.
didn't know how we would celebrate this holiday together, but I see that this was exactly what we needed to do, is to bring our communities together, and I am so grateful to my colleagues for this, our 5th Tekes Maavar together as an Upper East Side community. There's nothing more powerful than the fact that we can all come together across all these communities. I'm Rabbi Angela Buchdahl. I'm the senior rabbi of Central Synagogue, a few blocks down the way. On May 14th, 1948, as the British mandate over Palestine expired, David Ben-Gurion, with just hours before Shabbat was to descend, held a ceremony to read the newly created Declaration of the Establishment of the State of Israel. 38 signatories affirmed it. Within 4 hours, Egypt bombed Tel Aviv, and the War of Independence began. So from its very beginning, the celebration of Yom HaAtzmaut, Israeli independence, has always been intertwined with the understanding of the fragility of the very existence of the state. And because we know how unlikely, how tenuous it all is, all the more reason that we must take in the wonder and the miracle, the gratitude for this young state on Independence Day. But I do not have to say to this room, to anyone watching, to Jews anywhere in the world, that it is very hard to find our joy this year. With so much loss and grief, with so many hostages still held in Gaza, how can we celebrate? And yet we know we as a Jewish community have been here before, celebrating Yom HaAtzmaut when we are in no mood for rejoicing, when we feel an existential threat to our very existence and being. Just 50 years ago, after the Yom Kippur War, Israelis felt more insecure and vulnerable and gloomy than ever before. 7 months later, as Yom HaAtzmaut had come around, the country's mood was still shaken and wounded. Just 2 weeks before the holiday, 3 terrorists snuck in from Lebanon and went on a killing spree, killing 18 people, many of them children, and it felt like death was everywhere. Something was coming undone. Prime Minister Golda Meir reminded the country, with all the sadness and all the pain, it is still Yom HaAtzmaut. There's what to celebrate. While Yom Hazikaron, which we just marked today, reminds us of the very heavy price that we as a Jewish people have had to pay for a Jewish state, Shai reminded us with that powerful poem that when we observed Yom HaShoah just a week ago, we were reminded of the much heavier price of not having a Jewish state at all. So let us not forget, with all the grief and the pain, that we must celebrate this 76th year of Israel's independence. And for those of us who have been fortunate enough to talk to Israelis or visit since October 7th, without exception, not only do you feel the grief and the pain, but you feel the intense resilience, courage, bravery, sacrifice, selflessness of our brothers and sisters in Israel. On my first trip back to Israel after October 7th, I met with Doron Peretz, a leading rabbi who heads Mizrahi. October 7th, one of his sons was shot in the leg while fighting. His other son went missing from his tank command, taken into captivity. Their wounded son recovered and was to be married just 10 days later. But the family had a dilemma. How could they possibly celebrate their son's wedding while another son was in Gaza? Rabbi Peretz explained that they would choose life and went forward with the wedding. He challenged Ecclesiastes, which says there is a time and a season for everything, a time for life and a time for death, a time for mourning and a time for dancing, a time for planting and a time for uprooting. But he said instead, sometimes we have to experience them all at once. I was devastated to learn recently that their son in captivity, Daniel, was killed, and now They are among the more than 1,500 new bereaved families marking Yom Hazikaron. When I first came to Central Synagogue 18 years ago, we had a longtime Israeli security guard. He sat at the front door and he knew all of the children's names. When I asked him, "What is your name?" he said, "My name is Atzmon, but my parents didn't give me that name. David Ben-Gurion did." Atzmon was born in the first week of Israel's independence in 1948. The prime minister personally called the families of all the babies that were born that week and urged them to name their children in honor of Israel's independence. The country was already at war, fighting for its very life, but Atzmon's parents renamed their child Atzmon after Atzmaut, independence, an aspiration not only for their son and their family, but their nation and the entire Jewish people. And on my last visit to Israel, I had met with Jack and Noam, who had 2 family members murdered on October 7th, 3 more held in captivity, and Noam introduced me to their 8-year-old daughter, Be'eri. I raised my eyebrows thinking, that's probably a very complicated name to have right now. And Noam smiled, saying actually she could not be more proud. And that within the first month of October 7th, 5 babies born in Israel had been given the name Be'eri. Is there anything that captures more the spiritual defiance of Israelis, that they would give their newborns, in the wake of October 7th, the name of a place that suffered unfathomable loss, and reclaim the life-giving property of Be'eri, our wellspring, which has sustained our people since ancient days? Yes, there is existential fear and worry. There is so much grief and loss. We are still praying every day for our hostages to come home, and yet we must also find the space to celebrate the existence and the miracle of this state. We will hold all of that together. Our people know how to do this. There's a song that captures it well. For the honey, the sweetness, and the sting of the bee. For all in this life, for the baby that is given the name that is the aspiration of our people. Dear God, watch over all of this.
על הדבש ועל העוקץ, על המר והמתוק, על ביתנו התינוקת, שמור אלי הטוב, על האש המבוערת, על המים הזכים, על האיש השב הביתה מן המרחקים, על כל אלה, על כל אלה, שמור נא לי אלי הטוב, על הדבש ועל העוקץ, על המה והמתוק, על נטע קור נטוע, אל תשכח את התקווה, השיבני ואשובה אל הארץ הטובה. For the honey and the bee sting, for the bitter and the sweet, all the things which join as one to make our lives complete. For the future of our children, for our prayers will never cease, for the hope that with tomorrow comes a world of peace. על כל אלה, על כל אלה, שמונה לי אלי הטוב, על הדבש ועל העוקץ, על המה והמתוק, על נטע כור נטוע, אל תשכח את התקווה, השיבני ואשובה אל הארץ הטובה, אל הארץ
Karen Or, a ray of light, a perfect piece to sing at a Maavar Tekes. The desperation of utter darkness, followed by hope of a light far in the distance. Not only a Maavar Tekes, but also an allegory for 2,000 years of Gola and Medinat Yisrael, and for the experience of the moment that we're feeling right now. To take you on this journey, Cantor Ronit Hanan and Cantor Mira Davis.
את כל הכוכבים תמן, את הסעת אף בשחור מצפון ועד תימן, אין קרן אור. את כל הכוכבים תמן, את הסעת אף בשחור מצפון ועד תימן, אין קרן אור. והבוקר על מה נאמר, סקפון מותניו יחגור, מצפון ועד תימן, אין קרן אור. והבוקר על מה נאמר, סקפון מותניו יחגור, מצפון ועד תימן, אין קרן אור. אין אור, אין קרן אור.
There is a new version of a song, Am Yisrael Chai. Many of you have heard it. It's really taken the country of Israel by storm and has taken us by storm here. There are several verses. There's a new English verse that we have written. That's the verse you will surely understand. And it speaks about our Medina. But there's one text in there that really stands out because in all of our reasons for having a state, the 2,000-year-old reasons, very rarely have we used the phrase, Ki ein lanu od Medina. We have no other place to go. Forget the justifications. We have no other place to go. So I ask you when we're singing this, to be thinking about the Chatufim, thinking about our hostages, which most of the world doesn't seem to care about, not surprising. And when you sing Am Yisrael Chai, have these Chatufim in mind.
הוציא נחלתנו, לא תיפול כעת רוחנו, מסביב ברזל של חרבות.
ויונה תפרוס כנפיים, התקווה בת שנות 2000, עוד נצא לשיר ברחובות.
ישראל חי, אם לא נשכח תמיד להיות מאוחדים. עם ישראל חי, הקדוש ברוך הוא שומר עלינו, אז מי יכול עלינו? כי אין לנו עוד מדינה.
We will all lay down our fears, hoping for 2,000 years. Soon the dove will spread her wings on high.
Our eternal nation, Israel, will never fall. We're all together, no one is alone. The Holy One will bring His blessings to us all, and soon our dear ones
bring them home. Am Yisrael Chai. We stand here proudly, we are one and we are strong. Am Yisrael Chai. Because our spirits are united in our faith and in our soul. Kadosh Baruch Hu shomer aleinu, Hazikaron aleinu. Ki en lanu od medina. Taseh shalom shelateinu. Ki lo ata emuna. Am Yisrael Chai. Am Yisrael
Please remain standing. There are so many wonderful partners this evening, and I first just want to take a moment again to thank all of them for bringing us together. Thank you all, rabbis and cantors and the Zamir Choir and JBS. And I want to thank all of you here in the room, because we have come together over and over again. And that shows the spirit of the Jewish people. This is technically in the program, I have it here. It's meant to be a benediction. And of course, our prayer is something that Moshe said earlier. Our prayer is that next year we celebrate where the Chatufim are home with their families. Next year we celebrate where Israel has peace and strength and security. And next year we celebrate with a full heart. But I will tell you how we will get to next year and how we will get beyond. We will only get there if we are together, if we are strong together. That is part of the hope of the state of Israel, that it would be the state for all Jews, and we will all come together with Israel, and we will now sing the Hatikva together.
Thank you all for joining us. There might be refreshments on the way out, or cookies, I was told. Enjoy. Chag Atzmaut Sameach.